Welcome back to the Gridiron, everyone. I am here with Rob, other way, Justin, and Chris. We are here post draft, and we're going to break down best, worst steals and who got away with the best draft. Breaking it down all on the Gridiron. What's up, everybody? Everybody engaged with the Gridiron. Before we get into it, I'd like to read from our sponsor. Thank you to Lids for sponsoring this episode. With everyone getting new rookies, Simon Media time for new jerseys for new teams, especially after free agency. You can go to lids.com. It's not just hats, it's jerseys, hats, and any sort of memorabilia you can wear, all found on lids.com. First Tuesday post draft, there were trades, there were some surprises, and there were some not so surprising picks made. We're going to go over our top 3 best and worst from the draft, our steal of the draft, and who most improved from the 2024 draft. I'm going to start with Justin. Justin, what is your third ranked team that you think really got the most value out of their draft this year?
Honestly, and this is going to be biased because we are all biased, I'm going to say my Giants had one of the better drafts out of it, and it's because they did not fold and reached for another quarterback and repeated the same mistakes as before. Now, it's become a very divisive topic here with New York Giants fans and creators. Like, should we have taken J.J. McCarthy with the 6? Should we have not? And all I'll simply tell them is this. Last 6 years ago or 5 years ago, we reached on a quarterback with the 6th overall pick in Daniel Jones. And we have been paying for it ever since. And these social media GMs, as I call them, wanted to do the same thing over again and reach for another quarterback. And I feel like this was not the draft for us to get one. There were talks about them really liking Drake May and wanting to trade up. There's even been reports saying that they were willing to give up 3 picks this year and a first-round pick next year for Drake May. And instead of doing that, thankfully, they picked up pieces that will work for the long term in building up the draft. I love the Malik Neighbors pick. I feel like we finally got a wide receiver 1 that we haven't had since Odell Beckham, since Hakeem Nicks, and all them other receivers great before. But also the other picks. Tyler Nubin out of Minnesota. I love having a ball hawk safety that can play center field, something we haven't had in a while. While I do love like the safety play we had last year with Pinnock and McKinney, none of them were really like that pure center field, like drop them back and let them scan the field kind of safeties. The Andrew Phillips one in the 3rd round, kind of like hit or miss. I know they wanted him to probably end up being the CB2 or even in the slot at least, but having 0 interceptions in your whole collegiate career at Kentucky kind of scares me a little. But then the 2 picks after that, Theo Johnson out of Penn State, I feel like he was very much underutilized as a receiving tight end. The dude is 6'6", 260. And the way that the Giants coaching staff loves how they use tight ends, think of Dawson Knox, think of Travis Kelce. They know how to develop a receiving tight end. And I feel like he has the traits there to be one of the better tight ends in the league. And Tyrone Tracy Jr., I love that pick as a good value 5th rounder for that backfield. I know there's a lot of things going on saying that he's 25 years old, but guess what? Most running backs don't really get out of their first contract anyway before people start dropping them like flies. So with the amount of value that they've gotten, especially like in the later round picks, I really do think the Giants did what they had to do to build this team and lay the foundation for the future.
I agree with most of that. The big thing that the Giants really killed was not moving up, not pressuring into a quarterback when they are 1 year away from the out in Daniel Jones' contract. With you always like to bring up that Joe Sheehan out in 1 year to get out of Daniel Jones if need be. No, they gave their next quarterback, whoever it may be, barring a Daniel Jones absolute golden year, in Malik Neighbors, and giving him a number 1 option legitimately and giving him more option structure will be huge for whoever it is. And I just can't get out of my head that I was like, why does J.J. McCarthy look so familiar? I'm like, oh, he looks like Zach Wilson. And now I can't get it out of my head. He looks exactly like Zach Wilson. But not knocking JJ, he'll probably do great in Minnesota because it's a great situation. But you outlined the Giants stuck to the game plan, didn't get pressured by social media, and really upgraded their team. Going to that, Chris, who do you have slated at number 3?
All right. So number 3 for me is going to be probably the Panthers. I know a lot of people aren't very high on how they selected. However, what I feel that they did was they helped their young QB. They didn't have a ton of offensive production last year. So my biggest things and my biggest takeaways from some of their draft is 3 of the offensive players that they selected. The first one being Xavier Legette. He's a big wide receiver out of South Carolina. So you compare him if you're looking at their stats from last year, you had Adam Thielen with 1,000 yards, and then your next closest is DJ Chark with 525. So it's a severe drop off. So if you need really what Bryce Young is, especially like not knocking his height, but he needs a big receiver and someone who can maybe has a catch range where they can kind of make up for some of maybe the off-brand throws and things like that. So I feel like Legette is really going to help him do that. He's a big-time receiver. He's a muscular dude. I don't know if you guys have seen this guy, but he is a monster truck. So if you have him running down the field, then you have Adam Thielen. I think that's really going to help him. On top of that, you have the running back that they picked up. I believe he's out of Texas, and Jonathan Brooks. So from everything I was reading, it looked like he hit about 1,300 yards, somewhere in that range last year. So again, going to how they improved and what they were looking at last year, your highest rusher was Hubbard, who was at 902 yards. Not terrible, but then you have Miles Sanders at 432. So you don't really have that much of a. It just seems like the seconds for them there's a severe drop off. So if you're looking for someone, you want to help Bryce Young have some weapons, be able to get down the field, move the ball some, then you absolutely have to have a rushing game. So in order to do that, most people need like a duo, right? You need like a two-headed type of thing. So if you have Hubbard and now you have Brooks as well, I feel like that also helps him. And then I go to the big tight end also that they picked up, and Jatavion Sanders, who they don't have tight end. They don't have a tight end at all that can really produce. So again, I think that gives him another option. So for me, I think the Panthers did right by Bryce Young, helped him bolster up his offense, and maybe he gets a little more production this year.
Yeah, Jonathan Brooks happens to be the best running back in this class, and Jatavion Sanders is the second best tight end in this class. I mean, I've done my comparisons with him. That's Jatavion Sanders is your poor man's David Njoku. The only difference between them is Sanders is a little bit slower and 2-inch shorter arms. They're pretty much the same player. So the Panthers did a pretty great job. But I guess I would be going next, right? So personally, I might be a homer on this, but I think the Patriots had the third best draft. And the reason why I say that is you got the quarterback, which I presume is going to be the best quarterback of this class. Because if he's 21 years old and if he develops, it's going to be a problem. And then you go and pair him with two guys he's already worked out with in Javon Baker and Jalen Polk. He's trained with these guys, and they're already kind of hit the ground running in terms of their development and their training. There's a lot of clips out there that are already getting to work. Then when you start going down the board a little bit, you got Marcellus Dial out of South Carolina, who I have regarded as like a fifth-round pick. He's a pretty damn solid physical corner that I really like. And being that he's drafted in the sixth round, I apologize, is great. And then you got a guy in Joe Milton, who I get it. If you need him to throw 80 yards, he'll throw 80 yards. If you need him to throw 5 yards, he'll throw 80 yards. So basically, like he's going to be your gunslinger. He's going to be your Hail Mary guy. But also, I think that if you want to, you probably could turn him into your Taysom Hill role. He's already came out and said he's not going to play the tight end role. But I said, when I mean by Taysom Hill role, I memean like just being able to utilize his legs is a threat in itself. And then you got Jaheim Bell. Joe just did a freaking video on him. Kyle Juszczyk, I cannot get that last name for the life of me. Jaheim Bell, 7th round pick, which also was projected according to the NFL draft was regarded as a 4th round pick. So that, I mean, the difference is significant. Of the drafted tight ends since 2017, I guess yards per route run and 25% and over 25% of screen target rate. Dallas Goedert, Brock Bowers, and Jaheim Bell. He's a weapon in himself, and he's going to be a problem. So that's why I have them as number 3 for me.
I will say my piece and not touch the Patriots draft, being the Jets fan that I am. And we'll just leave that alone to Rob, Joe, and the plethora of other Patriots fans here at House Call to say how great they did at their draft. And I'll just leave them be at the bottom of the AFC East for another couple of years while they're still there. And I can still be happy about that. I personally have at number 3, I have the Chicago Bears at 3, having the best draft. I have them at 3, being Ryan Poles does not count towards this draft. What Ryan Poles did last year and amassing picks is an A++ 1,000 times over. He did a great job getting them to this point and giving them the capital and putting Caleb Williams in a fantastic situation, being the number overall pick, which is super rare to go into a good situation at number 1. Ryan Poles aside, they did what they had to do. There was no mysticism. There was no smoke screen. At number 1, you take Caleb Williams. If you make any other move, you just made the wrong move. You take the Caleb Williams. At number 9, Rome Odunze fell in your lap. What are you gonna do? Not take him? Wrong. You take arguably the second best receiver on the board. So they just played it by the book and took the best player available every single time they were up to pick. And they had a plethora of picks and great picks to do it. So that's why I only have them at 3 instead of higher, because I think they were just gifted great pick position, played smart, by the book, did what you had to do, nothing fancy. You made the right picks at the right times. They were by the book, but nothing extraordinary because of where they were. So be it. Go to Chris here. Who, third worst draft of the 2024 draft?
Oh, man.
A little more fun talking shit now.
So for third worst, I mean, it's probably not a surprise to many, and really it's just the third worst for one very in particular reason. I have the Falcons, was for the pick of Michael Penix Jr. I think that's probably, in my opinion, one of the biggest shocks of the draft of all. I don't think anybody expected for him to go that high and for the Falcons to pick him, seeing as he literally they just paid Kirk Cousins an immense amount of money for that same position. And if you're looking at Michael Penix Jr., he already is fairly old. I believe he's 24, 25 right now. And then for the GM, I believe it was the GM or the coach, to come out and say, oh, yeah, well, if he sits for 3 or 4 years, that's perfect for us. It means we're doing great at that position. So basically, you're going to push him, if that is the case, and you are planning to sit him for a minimum, let's just say a minimum of two years, he's going to be close to 27 by the time he even starts a game. And then, yes, I know about his injury history, but I think that is my biggest scare with him, really is his age. And then, again, you have 2 quarterbacks. I'd be pissed if I was Michael Penix, to be honest, because I think I've seen a few people kind of reference him to the RG3 Kirk Cousins thing with the Commanders, and lo and behold, it's kind of the same setup there. So I really don't know what they were thinking with that pick. Had a couple people that I've seen. So, for instance, with Joy Taylor over in the NFL draft, she was doing an interview and she actually liked the pick. She said, they have a pick they have a quarterback for now and a quarterback for the future. That was kind of her subset of that, and explaining kind of in her opinion, she believed that they didn't believe that they were going to be able to pick a quarterback at their particular pick. So they didn't think they would be able to have one. So that's why they signed Kirk Cousins, which I think is kind of a cop-out. You sign the guy that you want. So if you went for Kirk Cousins and now they're being investigated for tampering and all that type of stuff, so you went after the guy that you wanted, regardless of what your draft pick was. So I just think it's a baffling pick. We'll have to see eventually how that works out in the years to come, if he ends up starting in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, depending on when they decide to start him. But yeah, it's a baffling pick for me. So that's why I have them as my third.
They're kind of screwed anyways because the Dolphins got hit for tampering, so that's a first round pick right there. So if they go and do bad this year, which I can't envision that with that roster and Kirk Cousins, but say Kirk Cousins goes down, God forbid, nobody wants to wish injury. Michael Penix isn't a rookie, and to expect him to even perform at the level of Kirk Cousins is unreasonable. So and you say you get the 5th overall pick, now you just got that thing confiscated. So
yeah, I don't, like I said, I don't get it. Especially with Kurt. If you're unsure and it really is just kind of like a safety pick, then you don't pay him like he's your pick. You pay him like it's a safety pick. You don't give them $100+ million if you're unsure if that's really who you want your franchise to be set around. So yeah, just a baffling pick, and I feel like they're probably more than likely going to regret it come 2-3 years from now. They're going to be in a tough position because they're going to have to pay Michael Penix, right? They're going to have to pick up his options, and if you've never seen him take a snap, then how do you know that's your guy?
I mean, this is going to be a popular topic on this episode, so I won't speak too much, but we all are, I think, are on the same page with how they're handling this. And brought up a great point. He might not take a start before you have to pick up a 4th-year option, 5th-year option on him already. And if you're going to go out and get a backup plan, why not get like Spencer Rattler in the 4th round?
Exactly.
Why spend your 1st-round pick?
And he's pissed off as hell right now, too. Like, that kid's going to go. He's going to light the world on fire. God forbid Derek Carr slips up even a sliver.
Yeah. And, like, now you could be facing – if Spencer Rattler pans out, you're playing twice a year. So, but that's neither here nor there. Rob, going to you. Who do you have at the 3rd worst draft?
Well, so their draft is kind of just meh, like literally just meh. And then they just took the biggest reach of like I can ever see. They got a 4th round quarterback that they selected at 12. The Denver Broncos for me. I'm not impressed with their draft at all. Sean Payton's going to lose his job within the next 2 years if this doesn't pan out. Because honestly, like I don't see the mystique behind the kid. I think that they were preparing because of like next year and the preceding drafts after that they're not going to be good, but it's not easy to look that far ahead. I can get next year's draft because it's a little bit thin, but I don't even think Bo Nix can we say Bo Nix is better than Quinn Ewers, or this is kind of like a trade-off? Because if we go look at the damn numbers, 67% of Bo Nix's passes are either at or behind the line of scrimmage. His average step to the target is 4.1 yards. He's not – the guy at the Senior Bowl was getting shaky feet when you're not supposed to hit the quarterback. So that in itself, I mean, if he starts, he's going to be Mac Jones. That's just how I see it. Yeah, no, I mean, they're the same player, pretty much.
I mean, interesting takes from a big Mac Jones supporter down there for the last couple of years.
Fuck, I am.
And I'm sure, honestly, I think everyone on this panel probably has the Broncos somewhere on this list. I also definitely have them on this list at number 3 for everything Rob just said. It's baffling how you spend the number 12 overall pick on Bo Nix. Well, if you were really that worried about the Raiders taking Bo Nix, let the Raiders take Bo Nix. Like, there's better options. Trade up if you really need a quarterback that bad. Don't reach for a quarterback that could have easily been taken in the 2nd round, or 3rd, or 4th. Like, I think the talent drop off between Michael Penix and Bo Nix and JJ McCarthy is nuts to take him in a top 15 pick. And the rest of the draft made no sense either. You reach on Troy, you trade up to get Troy Franklin because he's supposed to replace Jerry Jeudy, and you lost all these key players on offense, and you reloaded with subpar talent all around for guys that, I'm not saying Russell Wilson was the answer.
I'm in agreement with Chris that the 3rd worst is the Atlanta Falcons. However, I have a different reason. I'm actually not 100% against Michael Penix being in Atlanta and everything that went around it, because when I look at this quarterback class, honestly, with the exception of Caleb Williams and maybe Michael Penix, this was really a year of quarterbacks that need at least 1 year to get acclimated to the NFL. I don't think anybody else besides maybe these two would be like day one starters in the league. So I actually do like the idea of Michael Penix sitting out for a year, learning the NFL, learning the Atlanta Falcons playbook, sit behind Kirk Cousins for a year, 2 years. And I know everything that flies in with that. Oh, but you gave Kirk Cousins a 4-year, $100 and something million deal. I dig into contracts just for fun. It's really a 2-year, $100 million deal. And if you really look at the marketplace, $50 million is more or less the going rate for a higher than average quarterback in the NFL in today's market. So really, it was going to happen regardless. And then the other thing being Penix's age. Yes, I get it. He probably won't start, let's say, until age 26, 27. So what? Quarterbacks are now going all the way into their mid-30s. So you're probably going to have 3 years of control of Penix in his rookie deal. And then after that, you can pick up his 5th-year option. You can pretty much franchise tag him once if you need to see more. You can sign him to a deal later on. He's probably not going to get upper echelon money unless he really lights the world on fire. And all of those good things. But the reason why I have him as their third worst is because of everything that they left on the table when they picked up Michael Penix. If you see it, you could have got Jared Verse to shore up that defensive line. You could have had Roma Dunze right there at your lap, but you chose to give it to Chicago, essentially, by making this pick. You could have took Brock Bowers, which, because this offense, as great as it is, I think it is missing another tight end in there that can actually be a much better pickup. So I just feel like they just missed out on so many things. Johnny Newton being another one in the second round by taking Rook. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, the defensive tackle out of Clemson. So the reason I have them as my third worst is simply because they left so much talent on the table because they took Penix in the first round.
So we laid out the details that what our worst are. So now I guess we got to move on to who are our second best. And I'm going to start off with Chris. Which team is your second best of the drafted teams?
Oh man, y'all love starting with me. So for me, my second, and it's crazy. I really haven't heard a lot of people talk about their draft, and I think because it was low key in my mind, genius, but low key enough for like, okay, like may not be splashy, but it made sense. And that was for me, it was for the Ravens. I think they had a very good draft that is going severely unnoticed. And again, I just like to normally just pinpoint things. So I'm going to pinpoint two very specific reasons why. And obviously, I'm just very offensive today. So I'm staying on the offensive side of the ball. So one is they picked up a tackle. They got Roger Rosengarten. So they got Lamar Jackson some help in his offensive line, keep him protected. I think that's going to be a huge thing for him. Hopefully, this is going to allow him to stay in the pocket a little bit more, maybe not be so dodgy and try to run so much and actually throw the ball down the field. I do think Zay Flowers last year was very severely underutilized. So I'm hoping that this is going to be a way for them to kind of bolster his emergence into maybe a wide receiver one. And then speaking of wide receivers, they went and got Tez Walker, who is Drake May's favorite target, who is also a burner, gets down the field in a hurry. And honestly, I feel like this is going to make teams and defensive coordinators have to account for the speed and the wide receivers that is going to be on that field, which is going to open up the run game. It's going to open up the middle of the field because they're going to have to account for them. Both of them can get down the field. They're both very twitchy. And I feel like Tez Walker is just he's just a home run ball, and you're going to have to account for it. So I think those are two very big moves that they made and why they're number 2 on my list.
And when you go look at Tez Walker, he's 6'4". I don't really like his route running. I think he's really just a one-trick pony. But then you go look at the rest of their list, and you just go based off the value. Nate Wiggins, who could be regarded as the best corner in this draft, could be regarded. Then you got Rosengarten. I think that was a little bit of a reach. Tez Walker, you got him in the 4th, which realistically a lot of people could have said that he could have been a third or second round pick. I think the biggest steal of their draft class is TJ Tampa. The fact that you were able to get him in the 4th round, which I honestly think he's a second or third round pick, it just kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that they did kind of and I think as you kind of referenced it earlier, where it's like with the Bears, where it's like you did what you needed to do, and you took who you felt was the best player at that spot, best player available, and I think that is normally a product of success. If you take who's available and not just because we need this, we're just going to reach and get who we think we need because they're at this position, and you take who you feel is going to be the best prospect overall. I think that's how you build a successful team. And I definitely think they did that this year.
And then for me, like number 2, honestly, you look at the Colts, what they did. I feel like getting probably the best pass rusher and Lael Latu, like don't even tell me how to pronounce that, at 15 just makes a ton of sense. And then you go down the list, Adonai Mitchell, who is highly regarded, at least on my board, as one of the best wide receivers in this class. I think the biggest thing, the reason why he got drafted as late as he did, is because it was known as, I guess people were saying he was cancerous or abrasive based off his ability because he has diabetes. But who are we to judge? Either way, at 52, that's a huge home run. Then you got Matt Goncalves, one of the best left tackles in this class, and you're getting him third round. That's kind of part of the course. But Jalen Simpson kind of is the biggest eye raiser for me. Personally, I had him. For me, I think he could be corner, he could be safety, so you're kind of filling both roles with him. I really, really like the pick, and the fact that you get him in the 5th round, it just really kind of rounds out their whole roster. But Gage, what do you think, brother?
I mean, really, I was kind of surprised with how they ran it a little bit, but with what they had, I'm very surprised they didn't go Dallas Turner. Then went Liate Latu due to that neck injury he suffered a couple years ago, and him playing professionally with that looming is a hazard. But I do think pure talent and pass rushing wise, yes, he is better than Dallas Turner, without a doubt. I think he's just purely more talented at rushing the passer. But the injury concerns is a big reason why I think a lot of people shied away from him. And then the Adonai Mitchell is a huge steal. I think we hit it on your live the other day, Rob, that he's now has professional nutritionist. He is now a commodity to a giant professional organization. They are going to make sure he is in the right space, healthy at all times. And if that was really his issue, why teams didn't let him slide to 52, it's very easily solvable on the regiment for a professional athlete, not a college kid who can slack off in his dorm room and really handle himself.
So that was your number 2 as well?
No, number 2 for me, I think, has to be the Detroit Lions.
Okay.
I think Detroit, their big thing on the board on their defensive side of the ball was a lack of corners. And first pick and Terrion Arnold was huge, massive pick. Easily possibly the best corner on the board. Easily the second best corner. Behind Quinion Mitchell, you can make that argument. And then getting Ruckenstraw the next pick. And they have now 2 legitimate corners, a great slot corner, Ruckenstraw. Went defensive tackle, shored up their game. The only one I didn't like, Sione Vaki at I think Utah running back. I think
safety running back. He's got multiple roles. They just can't figure. It's not gonna. Who knows what he's actually.
I think it's a great special teams pick. I think he's got a lot of talent.
Very raw.
But it's raw talent you can work with, and I think they drafted exactly how you need to. And luckily, it fell in their lap that what they needed was the best players on the board, best corners, best C tackles available, and the late round guard Christian Mahogany out of BC is a great depth piece. And to a line that is one of the best units in the NFL, if you just continually give them depth and young guys to learn from the best unit in the NFL, it just continues the cycle of having good depth players and good players you can piece in, because Dan Campbell likes running 6 offensive linemen in a lot of package. And so I think they had a fantastic draft for where they were picking.
And Justin, do you have a little bit of time and maybe you can just give your second pick?
Yeah, I got you right now. So my second pick is actually the Rams, and it's because going into this draft, the number one question they were going to have is how were they going to replace Aaron Donald now that Donald retired? Well, their answer was the first 2 picks that they had. You had Jared Verse, who was one of the top edge rushers in this draft. And then you have Braden Fisk, who's my favorite pick in the draft in the second round. And that kind of makes up that strength and that quickness that Aaron Donald gave you on that defensive line. Specifically with Braden Fisk, if you just turned on his combine performance, all of the skill set that he showed, his quickness with his feet, his hands, how much power he can do for such an undersized defensive tackle, it shows up on his tape as well. He has that speed coming against guards, centers, and I feel like he will do great behind that defensive line with the LA Rams. And I do also like the Blake Coleman pickup in the 3rd round. Yes, he is an undersized running back. Yes, he only played in 12 games, a year before or this year? But he's playing behind. He's going to be the 2nd running back on the depth chart. He's going to be that change of pace back. And put it like this dude is strong for somebody who's only 5'8", 205. He put up 30 reps on the bench. You know who else did that? Joe Alt, the number 5 overall pick who plays left tackle. So the dude is quick. He is strong. He's patient. He waits for his blocks to form. And I really do like the fact that for a team that hasn't had a 1st-round pick in 8-9 years, they came out pretty well and pretty equipped in all facets that they needed to stack up on and get depth in. So I really do like what the Rams did with their draft.
Yeah, I do too. And I believe there's a kid named Kitchens that they got as another late-round pick. They just seem to always do that. The Puka Nakuas, the Cooper Kupps, a lot of guys that they just get gems, but that just speaks to Sean McVay and his ability to draft. But I guess go ahead, Gage.
It's so hard that how they've had to draft of late the last 8 years that a 1st-round pick is still fielding the teams they do and finding diamonds they do late round is insane. And giving that sort of front office a 1st-round pick too to play with.
Dangerous.
Yeah, see, it's
definitely,
and it's still a playoff team. They're still a playoff team going into this year, and now they're coming out even better. It's crazy.
I feel like they're going to challenge the Niners this year. I really do. I think I actually have them as my most improved after the draft because of that, and specifically with the Fisk pick. Man, killer pick, man, killer pick. If you watch him in the Reese's Senior Bowl alone, that dude was just killing them, just knocking them over. It was crazy.
You would think they really would take a hit after Aaron Donald retiring, and they just said, "Okay, it happened."
Right? They said, "Hold my beer."
Well, we have to see how it pans out first before we make that decision. But I don't know if I would go as far as saying that they're challenging the Niners because we still have to figure out how that whole situation is going to go over with. Yeah, we still have to figure out how that whole situation is going to go over with Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and now they got Ricky Pearsall. So if somehow they are able to retain all of them without trading any of those guys out, then you'll have Ricky Pearsall, Brandon Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel, and then obviously the rest of their talented roster that they have. So it's going to be very hard to contain that offense. Ricky Pearsall, in my opinion, was a bit of a reach. But who am I to question Kyle Shanahan and that staff as to how to draft, considering how successful they've been?
John Lynch really be out there making moves.
So I can tell you one thing: my brother, being a diehard 49er, was baffled, completely baffled.
I mean, hey, they might see something that we don't. You
know? Yeah, absolutely. But if they win the division, hot take.
Yeah, Rob, what have we got? The number two slot worst draft.
Okay, so I'm going to be completely honest with you. I looked at their draft and I was just not impressed at all. It's the Falcons, and honestly, you could make a case that they're the worst, but the team that they have above them, I have kind of vendetta over. But the Falcons, I mean, you reach for Penix. I'm going to be honest with you. You just signed Kirk Cousins. And then I go look at the rest of the draft, and I'm like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, it's nothing really to like. I think their draft grade was like a 1.9. So they even by like the standards of ESPN, Fox Sports, all these damn major platforms, all graded them bad. So it's not going to just come out of my mouth. It's going to come out of all these other major sports platforms that they just. I mean, there's only one reason why I'm not having them as the worst, but they did pretty bad.
I mean. Again, the Falcons will be, I think, on most people's lists. I'm actually going to skip myself and just go straight to Justin when we got time for Justin's second worst team.
my favorite one that I get to talk shit about, which is
Dallas
the Dallas
Cowboys.
Cowboys. And it's really because they did the exact same thing in the draft that they pretty much did in free agency, which is a whole lot of nothing. I mean, here's the thing. They picked up an offensive tackle in the first round, which I do agree that they needed. You know, you get rid of Tyron Smith. He ends up on the Jets. So you need to replace somebody on that left tackle. But why did you replace him with somebody who's known for playing right tackle? Because as somebody who drafted a left tackle to play the right side in Evan Neal, it's a difficult transition because it's going to take some time to get used to the movements of essentially switching which side that your plant leg is on and your kick step and all of that. And that's going to expose that offense to a whole lot of potential issues. I know because I'm experiencing it now for the last 2-3 years. But they pretty much spent all the draft really trying to fix some of the aging issues that they have going on, primarily their offensive and defensive lines. And they really didn't do anything for like the big issues they have. You need help at receiver. You need help at corner. You need help actually in your defensive backfield completely because your star cornerback, who you just signed for a boatload of money, is coming back from a season-ending injury. And yes, you do also have Deron Bland, who did break the record for most pick sixes in a season. Okay, cool. He's not going to be able to repeat that. That's like one of those things you do once in your whole career. He is a great cornerback, but I think there's so many holes in that Dallas team. And I think that this is going to be the year that they fall off and have to completely rebuild.
I mean, I think you and I both would love to see that. And maybe Cowboys fans will shut up before the season starts. Yeah, Rob shakes his head because
because bro, even at the draft, you could hear their damn fans. They're just unreasonable. It's our year. It's like, isn't that we hear?
It's always been their year.
It's always been their year.
Every year.
They're gonna wind up
having
since
1980.
Listen, they're gonna wind
every
up
off season's their year.
They're gonna have to dedicate a maid just for dusting their rings off because how much dust is accumulated.
Jeez. All right, Chris, what do you got for us at number 2 worst drafts of 2024?
Oh, number 2. I feel like I'm gonna take Rob's first more than likely. I got the Buffalo Bills as my bottom second. Again, my bullet point person, so I'm not gonna go through their entire draft. I'm gonna just point to one very, very obvious, probably low hanging fruit. They gave the Chiefs Xavier Worthy, and they haven't beat them in the last 4 or 5 years. They have yet to beat them, and yet you give them exactly what they want. I don't get it. I don't understand it. There was definitely talent there for you to pick up. I understand the Keon Coleman pick-ish, but if you could have got Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Legette, like there were so many, Lamakonki, there were so many other options there for you just kind of sitting at your feet. And you chose to give what I would call your biggest arch enemy at this point, someone that you're constantly trying to battle and trying to keep your Super Bowl window open. And you just gave them exactly what they wanted, much to the dismay of the rest of the NFL fans who do not want to see another repeat and cannot stand to think of Travis Kelce going to another parade. But that's what they did. So that lone reason for me is the reason why I had them as my bottom 2, because I feel like they missed out on so much.
I mean, it's baffling. I know Rob will rip them apart again later when we get around to it. I don't hate the Keon Coleman pick. I just hate where they did it and what they gave other teams to do it is more baffling than the pick itself. Again, Chris, you hit it. The amount of talent elsewhere, while you also are a receiver needy team, to give potentially one of the most explosive players coming into the NFL to a team that is trying to three-peat now is irreprehensible in my mind that you do as a front office. It's like you said, well, we can't beat them, so let's make it as hard as anyone else to beat them coming out of the AFC too. Just because our window's closed, let's fuck everyone else now.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy. And then you give it to a team who's used to dealing with speedy receivers. So, I know his frame has kind of come into question a couple times, but if anybody knows how to handle that, it's Andy Reid. Let's be honest.
You just give such a weapon to not only the best coach in the league right now, arguably, like not even arguably the best quarterback in the league.
Right.
Just give them what they missed out when Tyreek Hill left. A much rawer version of Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
But it's still the same scheme.
Yep.
Sheer, out of the track speed. And my number 2 is, honestly, it's a little rough to say, but the Cleveland Browns, even without a first round pick, didn't get the pick until I think 53, I believe, was their pick. 54 was their first pick. And they took Mike Hall Jr. Very raw, risky prospect. They, if you look with how their offensive line held up for Deshaun Watson and then later on Joe Flacco, I would have went offensive line right here. And Dominic Pooney was still very much so on the board, who is a absolute animal at guard. I would have went him first, and then went D tackle because they were still plenty. Yes, I understand D tackles were flying off the board at that point, and you fed into the frenzy. You just can't let yourself do that to the better options for your team. And then Zach Zinter is also a huge question mark as well. So their first 2 picks are just big question marks, but they pan out, let alone start. And the only bright side, I think, Jamari Thrash out of Louisville was a real huge pickup in the 5th round, best pick of their draft easily. And hopefully he was able to do something either in the return game or as a number 4, maybe potentially 3 option if you can beat Elijah Moore out, or they shift him outside. But other than that, their draft was very lackluster, and I don't see how they really made their team any way better.
Jamari Thrash in the return game would be insanity, especially with a new setup. Oh my goodness, that dude's like a bowling ball.
And it's not slow by any means. Not slow by any means. It just, especially you brought up the new rule, it's going to make the return game a lot more interesting this year. So we're going to go right back to you, Chris, and Justin. For anyone that's interested, Justin's first pick was for the best being the Eagles, and his worst was the Broncos for reasons I think we've all stated and ran around in this room. Of why, mostly Bo Nix. So we're gonna go actually back to you, Chris, for number 1 best draft of 2024.
Let's do it. So number 1 again might be a little bit of low hanging fruit. I think we kind of touched on it, so I'm not gonna get into grave detail about it. But for me, it is absolutely the Bears. I think they killed it, even though it's mainly the first 2 picks, I think is what's grabbing everybody. I think they were monumental into what they're doing, especially with what they did in the free agency. You went and got Keenan Allen. You went and got DeAndre Swift. So you've already done that. You bolstered your line, which was obviously a little bit of a concern. They went and signed one of the tackles, I think, out of Bills, if I remember correctly. So you bolstered your line a little bit. So you went and got QB1 in Caleb Williams, who is far and above an upgrade from Justin Fields. So like we were just looking over stats earlier and looking at a Justin Fields stat. And if I can find it, let me in it. I think Justin Fields threw for 2,562 yards last season, 16 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Their best receiver obviously was DJ Moore, who put up about 1,300, and then your next best is going to be your tight end in Cole Kmet, and he put up 719. Your next best receiver is Darnell Mooney, who put up 414 yards. So what you just did is you now have cast onto the NFL the offense of a Caleb Williams, of a DeAndre Swift, of a Rome Odunze, of a Keenan Allen, of a DJ Moore, and then you add Cole Kmet on top of that.
Yeah, 3 ones.
Right.
Literally 3 number 1 wide receivers, and you can put DJ Moore in the lower end of it, but he's still a freaking problem.
Like, so who's stopping them essentially offensive wise? If Caleb Williams pans out, now given that's going to be a caveat, if he can transition into the NFL and be what everybody expects him to be, I think they far and away killed their draft and did exactly what they were supposed to do. And the fact that they got Roman Dunze to me still is mind blowing.
Yeah, like I was said earlier, it's such a rarity that a number 1 overall pick goes into such a good situation.
Never
It's
happened
insane.
before.
It's
Never
insane.
happened before.
And last year, getting Darryl Wright as a great anchor for offensive line, and the way he's trained, all the stories that came out, him running with the receivers for conditioning and everything.
Oh wow, nice.
And his work ethic, because he thought that the conditioning for the O lineman was the receiver one, so he met all the metrics for skills positions, which is insane.
Crazy.
The man is 300 something pounds, and now it's conditioning like he's a receiver. It's insane. And he had a great rookie season last year for Justin Fields, one of the few bright spots on that offensive line.
Yeah.
And I think the Bears keep Caleb Williams upright, and it's going to be a fucking problem.
It's going to be fun to watch, though.
The whole NFC North is a problem, minus the Vikings. Minus the Vikings. Anyway, number 1, going to you, Rob. Who are you going to torture?
It's the Bears, man. I was thinking about the Eagles, but I'm like, you know what? The Bears kind of ran away with it, and it, like Chris said, and like we've all said, this is the best situation for a rookie to come into. This situation to the point that like Allen may be the 3rd best wide receiver, and that's kind of, especially with the year that he had last year, it's kind of baffling. And this may be the one year that you could look at that roster, you could look at that team. And with Matt Eberflus, once he took over that defense, they were regarded as, and they got Montez Sweat from the Commanders. They became like the 5th best defense in the whole NFL. So look, at the end of the day, and we're not going based off what we think they're going to do. Obviously, they killed the draft. Roma Dunze, 75% contested catch rate, the best contested catch rate receiver in this whole draft class. He's a blue chip player. And you just talked about a guy that ran receiver drills. Well, Odunze wouldn't get off that damn 3-cone drill until he stood there and he kept doing it over and over again. So there's a testament to the work ethic. Really what all boils down to is, what are we getting in Caleb Williams? If we get a Caleb Williams that can button down his chin strap and get the ball rolling, they're a team that's not only just going to be rivaling to win that division, they could win a Super Bowl. It's that dangerous, because you're top 5 last year in defense, and then you got an offense as potent as this all across the board. I mean, like, how are you going to guard this? If they figure it out,
Darnell Mooney might not touch the field.
If Matt Eberflus doesn't fuck this up, they're going to be a problem. Like a legitimate problem to anyone in the NFL. You cannot guard them. They have 3 guys that realistically can give you 1,000 yards. So, and when you go look, there's never been a Bears quarterback that's hit 4,000 yards. I believe recently, Odunze was on some kind of Chicago news station, and he was laughing because the actual record for the most career receiving yards is 5,000 yards, and he literally laughed. So he's out there to break records, and this team is really going to just be a problem for years to come. It's really what their downfall will be is, can Caleb Williams not make himself a distraction? Because I think personally that team is going to implode at some point, because I think his ego is going to get the best of him. He's too much of a head case. But if he somehow can button down the chin strap, listen, I don't see a team in the NFL that can compete with them. I'm not even joking. It's the Texans, the Chiefs, and realistically, the Bears.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to last year, I was very high on the Bears when we did our rankings of divisions last year. I really thought they were going to challenge the Lions last year with how they looked on paper and the potential, even with Justin's, my personal feeling, I think Justin Fields didn't get a fair shake, all that, but that's different. Neither here nor there. Was very high on them last year, and they got better. So I downplayed how well they did this draft just because of where they were picking. It doesn't take light that they had an amazing draft. And you got Keenan Allen in his natural, comfortable slot position. You have DJ Moore on the outside, and then you have Roman Dunze, another big body with, again, Robson, 75% catch rate on the outside with DJ Moore, who also has one of the higher percentage catch rates in the league. You have red zone threat on red zone threat on red zone threat. Also, don't forget, even though Keenan Allen's in the slot, he's also about 6'4". Don't forget that. Like,
It's not fair.
So good that Darnell Mooney, a legitimately number 2 receiver, might not touch the field unless they go 4 wide. Might not touch the field. And also, don't forget Cole Kmet, also probably a top 5 receiving tight end in the league.
You think Mooney gets traded at some point this season?
Probably.
No. They're not trading him. You maximize what you got here. Seriously,
I mean, you can get a good pick for Darnell Mooney.
They have 4 guys that can go over 1,000 yards. This offense, how do you
technically 5 if you count Cole Kmet? Cole Kmet could easily go for 1,000.
How do you go? This could be the first year a rookie comes in and throws for 50. I know this sounds crazy, but when you look at it, what they have on this roster, Ryan Poles, if he doesn't win GM of the year, or executive of the year, it's just a robbery. And the only way you can make a case that he won't, and I'm being a homer, is if the Patriots go out there and they just ball out, because you're going from the 4 wins to if they win 8 to 9 wins, that's a significant jump. And nobody, you look at every damn metric across the board, they're not looking at this team and thinking they're anything special. Me personally, I actually do my research on these analysts. But yeah, if I'm telling you right now, they're going to be a problem.
Ryan Poles has put on a masterclass at the GM position for the last 2 years.
Yep.
Last 2 years, absolute masterclass. And I know we're hyping up the Bears, but actually, I do have the Eagles at number 1. I do have the Eagles at number 1.
They had a good draft.
It's Howie Roseman takes losses so personally. It's hilarious. Every time the Eagles lose again, he's either lose a game, he's either making a trade of a weakness or just losing his absolute mind in the draft. Quinion Mitchell, best corner in the draft, just fell in their lap at 22 because of teams like the Falcons and the Broncos and the Vikings.
It's a very offensive draft, especially in the top half. Oh my gosh.
Reaching on quarterbacks and offensive players you could have got. Now the Eagles have the best. Darius Slay and James Bradbury were a weak spot last year, and they're getting older.
And they got Cooper DeJean.
I was getting there. I was getting there.
Bro, they got two of the four best corners.
And in the second round. But their first 2 picks were 2 of the top 4 corners. And they didn't have to really sell anything to get them. They just fell there. Which is
Johnny Wilson. And Johnny fucking Wilson.
Absurd that they keep getting away with this year to year to year. Howie Roseman and the Eagles are putting the way they draft and how Howie Roseman manipulates contracts, cap, and everything. It's insane how he's able to do this year after year after year after year, especially with that defense, to make sure that they will stay in every single game again this year. Buying that, unfortunately, if Jalen Hurts comes back to Jalen Hurts form and they replace Jason Kelce on the line. Easier said than done. But that team is just continually going to be a problem until someone stops them. Because damn sure it's not going to be Dallas. Sure as fuck not going to be the Giants. And Commanders had a phenomenal draft, but it's not them yet either. So it's just another walk into the playoffs for the Eagles, who just continue to get younger and better. It's crazy, but that's how you're supposed to run a team. That's how you're supposed to build a team.
If they figure it out, though, they legitimately have the best defense in the NFL.
I think that the average age on their defense is 24 years old.
Insane.
Slay is like the old head out there.
Slay and Bradbury are the oldest players that touch that field.
And that's funny.
Reed Blankenship is 25. The 2 corners that are going to start, DeJean and Quinion Mitchell, their defensive line basically got drafted last year.
Man, yeah, they're going to be a problem for a long time.
They're 1 weak spot's linebacker core, but guess what? I don't think that's going to be a problem this year. I think they're going to be healthy. It's going to be crazy how young and fast they are on defense. Again. I mean, let's just go number one worst. Let's go, Rob. Get off this Eagles. Not an Eagles fan. I just tired of it. Tired of it.
So, you passed on Xavier Worthy. You passed on Adonai Mitchell. You passed on Xavier Leggett. You decided to settle for Keon Coleman. If you haven't actually did the tying these things together, and ignore this logo that I have on my chest, that's not the reason why I'm doing this. I would like to say you had a decent draft because that would mean you probably got one of those guys to take or at least get Worthy so he doesn't go to the Chiefs. Oh, but how did he get to the Chiefs, you may ask? Your dumbasses traded him, basically traded him to the Chiefs. So it's like that older brother that grabs your arm and says, "Why are you hitting yourself? Stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself." You just got little brothered. Literally, like we said it on draft night during the live stream for the House Call Sports. We all had literally the biggest meltdown across the board. This was the single stupidest thing anybody can do. And it's not even just you giving them Worthy. You missed out on Leggett, who's a significantly better wide receiver than Keon Coleman. You missed out on Worthy, who, I mean, you can probably make a case there. But you also missed on Adonai Mitchell, who's 6'2", 6'3", and runs a 4.39, and is basically could do all the things Keon Coleman can do, except for he's fast as hell. You got a 50-50 ball guy? Oh, by the way, you also missed out on Ladd McConkey. Like, what are we doing here? A guy that honestly could mirror. I mean, Chris did a fucking video for it. So, a guy that could mirror what you had in Stephon Diggs, a route technician. The best route technician, by the way, in this draft. What the fuck did you do? I honestly, your draft was meh, and I probably would have given you a pass. But the fact that you not only drafted Keon Coleman, which kid is honestly it's not his fault. His team is a fucking idiot. He's a good kid. He's a really good kid. He seems like a stand-up individual, financially really savvy kid. He knows how to spend his money. He's not going to be a problem. He's not going to be a head case. However, that was the single worst draft in probably your history of your team. And the reason why I say that is because you did the worst thing you can do. You gave Goliath, you're David, you gave Goliath the slingshot. You gave him the slingshot, and you're like, you know what? I don't fucking need it. I'm just going to use my fucking hands. You don't bring hands to a fucking gunfight. The single stupidest fucking thing you could do, you did. I really hope you pay for this. And I don't mean pay for it as I think the Chiefs. I honestly think, and I said this in the live stream, you will not make the playoffs this year. If not for a monumental collapse by the Giants by the Dolphins last year, you don't make the fucking playoffs. I'm actually mailing it in right now. You are not making the playoffs this year. I don't give a fuck if Josh Allen pulled at your heartstrings and said he wants Keon Coleman. When the fuck have we ever relied on Josh Allen to make good decisions? He throws the most interceptions in the league. I think his decision making is not that great. Just saying. So why take Keon Coleman over Xavier Worthy, Xavier Leggett, Adonai Mitchell? You guys deserve all the failure that comes from this.
Rob, we talked about it yesterday on 2 days ago on your live. So sorry I missed this morning. They just said, not our problem. It's gonna be everyone else's problem now. Since our window's closed, we might as well just keep giving the Chiefs basically everything they were lacking last year. Just send it in because they didn't get Hollywood Brown or anything. They did not. They didn't do anything this offseason to get better too. Well, the Bills just lost pieces after piece after piece, and
they picked up what Curtis Samuel.
Yeah.
That's what you did.
Dave Davis, who is now in Jacksonville,
right.
and Stephon Diggs, who is now a Houston Texan.
Right.
And Jordan Poyer, who is now in Miami Dolphins.
Right.
Good job.
Yeah, they gave him a ton.
Three starters, productive starters, went bye-bye, and you replaced them with not even the best option you had available every single time. But who am I to say? My number one overall is very easy. It's the Falcons. It's the Falcons for me. It's just not that I hate the Michael Penix pick. It's just I hate the Michael Penix pick. Like, why pay Kirk Cousins all that money? Well, you could just, if you're gonna do it, just wait. Draft Spencer Rattler later on if you want a quarterback of the future who's younger and who could develop behind Kirk Cousins, who is a very good quarterback, just can't win in prime time. I'm not knocking Kirk. He's very, very good quarterback during the regular season. Could probably be a very, very good teacher just from how he carries himself. I think Kurt will be a great teacher for a late round quarterback you want to develop that has raw talent, like a Joe Milton or Spencer Rattler. Like, you had late round options, and you decide at number 8, instead of fixing your biggest weakness of your shitty defense that you've had for the last decade, and getting Dallas Turner, Leata Latu, someone to give you some defensive presence.
Or trade back. I don't know, because Latu was there. Latu was there at 15. Like, seriously, I really, really like Penix.
You could have gotten draft pick after draft pick after draft pick from the Vikings, from the Broncos,
You
from
probably
the
make a case for the
Raiders,
Jets. The Jets probably would have traded up too.
and you just said, nah, let's make the worst decision possible. I don't care about the rest of your draft at this point. You now gave a 24-year-old quarterback who does have potential, yes. But you also have a $180 million a year quarterback you just gave a $100 million guarantee to off an ACL injury at 35 to say, oh, it'll work out for now and for later. No, it won't. No, in no way, shape, or form does this work out. And not to mention, your long-term situation at quarterback has a paper mache right knee. Like, it's
not even sure how he's coming back. Like, you don't know what he's gonna do.
I'm not even talking about Kirk. I'm talking about Michael Penix, paper mache right knee.
Oh, well, fair.
and you don't know how Kirk's coming back. It's you tried to plan for every worst case scenario, but you made yourself the worst case scenario, and it's absurd to me that they did this.
They're in no position to be getting a quarterback, honestly. Like, I get it, Kirk coming off an Achilles injury, but like you said, you could have got Spencer Rattler.
You also don't need to know this. You have one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league in Tyler Heineke. Perfectly good, serviceable quarterback if Kirk's not ready to go. Perfectly serviceable. Will win you games, especially with that offense. Will win you games. Did it last year when Desmond Ridder sucked. Crazy. Yeah. But no, you waste pick number 8. Michael Penix Jr.
And also, like, it's a disservice to him as well.
Yeah,
you know, the top pick, and you're going to sit on the bench.
No ill will towards him. He just now in the worst situation possible for his career.
Absolutely, because he's going to sit for a minimum of 2 years, minimum, if not 3 to 4. Then basically, that's their whole rookie contract essentially.
And now he's 27, 28 with no starting experience in the NFL.
And let's think about it. He's going to want a contract.
Yeah.
He's going to want money because your days are numbered. He's not the guy that's going to last in his 40s. I mean, realistically, he has 10 years because your meniscus, which is basically, I mean, it was like that jelly-like little material, whatever that is between your kneecap, that stops it from grinding into each other. He basically doesn't have that because of the fact that he had 2 right ACL tears. But I mean, it is what it is.
It's rough. And like, I get the whole point of, like, I know some people have tried to make the point of, oh, like, it's kind of similar to like the Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love. I'm like, it's not the same at all though. Like, I get the comparison, but it's not the same. Jordan Love wasn't that old.
Jordan Love
was 21 years old. Right. Jordan so it's like he had time to grow and he needed it, obviously. But yeah, this is just not the same. Like you said, like, you have a veteran quarterback who's coming off a pretty serious injury. He's older, so you don't know how he's gonna perform. So you're really you're taking a huge risk No risk, no reward. I get it, but I don't know. I
Chris,
think they might have definitely screwed themselves.
Who'd you have at number 1?
For my I don't think my top or my bottom.
Bottom.
Oh, my bottom. I had the Broncos. For a slate of reasons that already been said, but just to be in particular, their QB room is still a grave concern, and it's concerning when you go on you go on best free agencies available and where they might fit. Not even 24 hours after the draft, and they're mocking Tannehill to the Broncos. So, like, you took Bo Nix, you have Jarrett Stidham, Zach Wilson, and Ben DiNucci. Now,
Jarrett Stidham's their best fucking. They got Ben DiNucci too. Oh, that's a fucking that's like, oh my god, that's like a fucking episode out of Mad TV. That can't be their quarterback room.
It is. It's Jarrett Stidham, now Bo Nix, Zach Wilson, Ben DiNucci. Jarrett Stidham in his entire career, so since 2019, has thrown 1,422 yards total in his entire career. Then you have Zach Wilson, who, I mean, he has 62.93. Great. He also has 23 touchdowns, 25 interceptions, and a terrible QBR rating. We've all seen him. He's had basically virtually no success.
I've watched it every week.
Right. Oh, are you a Jets fan?
3 years.
Oh no.
You can make a case he's the worst quarterback in the league, but you may have just drafted the worst quarterback in the league in Mac Jones.
I say basically the same person. And then you have Ben DiNucci, right? This is before you drafted Bo Nix. You have Ben DiNucci, who has played in a total of 3 games.
I like DiNucci though.
I get that, but if you're looking at someone who has 23 completions and less than 300 yards, and he's been in the NFL, I believe, since 2020, that's a concern. So then you go and get Bo Nix, who you've already mentioned, has a very high percentage of passes thrown behind the line of scrimmage. All of them do. This is virtually the same guy, and everybody in this quarterback room, and it's not a Spider-Man good same guy.
They're the Spider-Man meme. I don't know what the hell Sean Payton's doing over there.
I don't know. And to get him so high, like, my biggest thing is, and kind of like we were just talking with the Falcons, if that's who you wanted for whatever reason, like that's who your heart was set on, trade back. Get a couple picks, get some draft capital. I think they only had like 7 picks this entire thing because they moved up for Troy Franklin. So move back, or maybe bolster your defense, or get Brian Thomas Jr. Right, like you just left Jerry Jeudy, right? Just let him go. Maybe get a decent wide receiver and start building around that.
Yeah, I don't like the Troy Franklin, and the reason why I don't like the Troy Franklin is because he's like a thin.
He's small. Yeah,
he's Tyquan Thornton, and the reason why I know that is because we were mocked to have this guy for the longest time. And I was like, when they drafted him, I jumped for joy. He says, like, that guy, I did not want him. Look, the whole damn team is just a big, like, I think that Sean Payton just forgot his brain at the door when he reapplied back into the NFL. Just completely forgot, or left it in New Orleans.
Or maybe he just wasn't as
maybe it was the whole same quarterback that he had his entire career in New Orleans.
Yeah, maybe the reason why. Yeah,
maybe he wasn't as super intelligent and as dynamic as we would have thought because.
And then his press conference after the first day of the draft, how he's like laughing, how he got the Vikings to trade up to take JJ.
Like, you took
Bo Nix.
The thing is with JJ, and I don't think he's that great of I think he's significantly better than Bo Nix.
Yeah, but he's also going to a significantly better situation.
I was just going to say that, like, when you go look at the situations, they're not remotely
Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison were way different than
JJ Hawkinson, and list goes
on. He went to the best position he could have went in, period, for him to have success.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep it with you, Rob. Let's go with steal of the draft.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. You could have made it. If this kid did not have all these character issues, he would have been drafted in the first round. Spencer Rattler in the 5th round is criminal. I was going to say Jaheim Bell because he's a stud, but the more I thought about it, and the more I got that thing in the back of my mind, Go look at the tape when he got drafted. He is one pissed off motherfucker. And they're really kind of lathering it on pretty good with that whole high school thing where he had that Netflix documentary or whatever.
High school.
I'm gonna tell you right now.
Get over it.
I wanted my Patriots to draft him if we weren't going to draft the number 3, and Gage will probably attest to this. I'm not really wrong that much. He's going to be a fucking problem, and the reason why I say that is because not only did you give him the biggest chip you could ever have, because he's not a 5th round pick. If you think he's a 5th round pick, you think he's a bad quarterback, you have not been watching the tape. And I'm not going to say he's this quarterback, but coming out of college, they look remarkably similar in just how they throw, how they play, and how they basically acted coming out. Go look at Patrick Mahomes in college. They look the fucking same. They look the same. And I'm telling you right now, if Derek Carr even slips up for a second, you're going to see a problem.
I think if Derek Carr gets hurt again, it's going to be...
Which he will.
very
and
interesting.
And I will say this: he will take that quarterback 1 role and never give it back, because you just gave this kid Tom Brady syndrome. I hate to say it, but like, you gave this kid this was probably the best thing that could happen for this kid. And I think he buried that ego a long time ago. However, just give him more incentive to the Saints if they do this right, you have your franchise quarterback of the future. I will bet my fucking house on it.
Yeah.
Because if you want to take what happened?
He's an absolute dog. Like, now you just yes, he had the high school as a 17-year-old kid. So sorry that you're an NFL executive judging this 22-year-old man now.
He also had issues at South Carolina, not South Carolina, at Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, yeah.
But they're still growing up.
Watch the tape. Watch the interviews from Oklahoma to South Carolina. Not the same person. Not the same quarterback. Doesn't talk the same. And if he got his mentality right going into a situation like this, where he should have been at least a 2nd or 3rd round pick, and now he dropped to the 5th, going to be a problem. I like, perfect segue into my seal draft. If the Jets didn't take Jordan Travis, I wanted them to get Spencer Rattler easily to sit behind Aaron Rodgers.
Everybody's advocated for this kid. He's that he's that damn good. I don't see where is it that they don't see this kid? Like, he is fucking. His mannerisms are all Mahomes. I'm not even just how he, bro. Go watch the fucking tape. They look the same. If you close your eyes, you do that squinting meme with the Spider-Man thing. You have your glasses off. You do this. They look the fucking same. And bro, Gage, you know I don't miss on these things. Like, this kid is gonna be a fucking problem.
And it's just a good situation for him too. That's why I want him on the Jets, sit behind Aaron Rodgers a year or two, and then have him prove the league. Oh, I should have been a 1st round pick. I should have been the guy. But now I'm going to make all the teams, just like 31 teams pass on Lamar twice, and Lamar is still a problem. But that, again, my seal of the draft is I'm going to go my Jets. As much as I'd like to be Malachi Corley, who was an absolute steal and a half in the 3rd round by the Jets, get a great number 2 receiver for a very lackluster receiving core outside of Garrett.
Arguably a one if he fucking figures it out.
I have to go Jordan Travis in the 5th round by the Jets. If he doesn't get hurt, he's arguably a 1st round pick. Arguably Heisman candidate. Would have got Florida State into the NCAA playoffs.
Yeah.
And legitimately has all the talent in the world if he comes back from injury. It's crazy. Threw only 2 picks all last year and can move with his legs, smart with the ball, great arm strength, everything you want. Just now has injury concerns. And he's well worth a 5th round pick. And it's going to be crazy if he pans out with his talent ceiling. Insane if he dropped that far. That's all I got for that. That's all I got. Like I don't know. As a Jets fan, you want anything better than a low risk, very high reward.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the biggest thing that they say about fifth round picks to seventh round picks, they say the disparity in talent between the fifth and seventh round. This is kind of the throwaway away rounds. That's why you see a lot of teams actually the fifth round is statistically the worst round in the history of the NFL. So you'll see a lot of teams draft kickers in the fifth round. I don't know for whatever reason why the fifth round is worse than the sixth and seventh round, but that's just how it is. Chris, who do you got?
So it's probably not as crazy as you guys', but I still felt like it was, in my opinion, a huge steal just because of their setup. And mine is Adonai Mitchell, actually. With him being slated to go in the first round, mid to late, and he drops all the way down to the late second round. And then not only does he drop down, he goes to the Colts, who have Michael Pittman Jr., who they just signed. I don't want to see them. Don't
forget Josh Downs.
Exactly. And they just drafted him last year. So their offense, I feel like, man, and who's Anthony Richardson, right? Their quarterback. So if he comes back and he pops in his second year, Josh Down pops in his second year, you already have Michael Pittman Jr.
Don't forget Jonathan Taylor out of the backfield too.
See, exactly. You don't want to see them. So I think by far for me that was the steal of the draft because I think they just immensely boosted their offense when their offense was already kind of trending towards that, and they added a huge piece. And the fact that they were even able to draft him that far down in the second round is insane.
Yeah, Rob already touched on it when he put the Colts as his, I think, 2 best improved, 2 top draft. It's crazy how far he dropped. It's very like that might be the scariest receivers, one of the top 3 scariest receiver cores in the league right now, barring I think Houston and Chicago.
Yeah, Houston's going to be an issue too.
I think Houston and Chicago are the only team that beat out that receiving core because they're both ridiculous.
I can tell you one thing though, the NFL is going to be very exciting for the next 4 or 5, 10 years.
Also, like just quick, Justin also had Spencer Rattler as his steal of the draft to the Saints, and I'd like to just shout out Cade Stover going late to the Texans because I think he's going to be an absolute animal behind Dalton Schultz.
That's who I wanted.
I wanted Cade Stover. Does he go to the damn Texans, bro? I feel like they could have done something else, but they're like, you know what? Embarrassment of riches. You got Stephon Diggs, Cade Stover, Dalton Schultz, Tank Dell, John Mechie, Nico Collins. Jesus Christ. How do you stop that offense?
Let's just add Cade Stover so we want to run 2 tight ends.
Right.
Add it.
For anybody that wants a comp for Cade Stover, that's Hunter Henry.
Yeah.
That's Hunter Henry, young Hunter Henry.
And
if any of you
great
guys
blocker, very strong, great hands.
He's a problem, and he's a good leader too at a young age.
Yeah.
I'm actually to keep it with you, Chris. I'm going to go for the most improved team post draft.
So for me, because I already had the Bears as winning the draft, I'm just gonna go a different route. They were up there, so I'm gonna go with the Rams. Like I think Justin said earlier, their biggest question was obviously what are you doing after Donald retires? And I really feel like they said, "Hey, hold my beer and watch us work." They had a great draft, picking up Brandon Fisk, picking up was it Jared Verse? It 2 like back-to-back picks, insane already. And then you went and you got Kyron Williams, another partner to work with in Blake Corum. So with Kyron Williams coming off of one of his best seasons, and then you pair him with Blake Corum, so it should be a fairly good running back duo. If Matthew Stafford can stay upright, stay healthy, I do feel like they're going to be one to contend with. And I will keep saying, hot take here, if they win the division, don't be surprised, and you heard it here first. I know there's things that they got to figure out, but I definitely feel like they're in that realm and could easily be overlooked, and for that reason, could surprise some people. So they are my most improved following the draft.
Yeah, they kind of flew under the radar on how well they drafted. I'm glad Justin brought it up and really maybe reanalyze their draft and what they were filling, especially with Aaron Donald retiring. Sean McVay in that front office does a great job, especially late round. They're going to be a tough team again
I agree, and it's crazy to think that he was thinking of retiring, right? Like Sean McVay, like crazy.
It's crazy. He could be in the league for another 20 years. Still,
Easily,
just turned 40, I think.
easily. Yep, still young guy.
So, Rob, going to go to you. Most improved. Then I'll give Justin's pick in the nine.
I honestly think it's a no-brainer. You go from Mac. I hate to make this really isn't that much of a homer thing. Come on, stop it. You go from Mac Jones that can't throw 20 yards with any type of zip to Drake May. You go from having guys that cannot stretch the field. They were the worst scoring offense in the league. You got Javon Baker, who, by the way, averages 21.9 yards. And the only one that averaged more was Rome Odunze. You go with contested catches. You have Rome Odunze with 21. You've got Malik Neighbors with 19. You got Javon Baker with 15. By the way, his quarterback was out for like half the season. And by the way, Jalen Polk was number 4 with 13. The only person that had a higher contested catch rate than Javon Baker was Rome Odunze. So you got a guy in the 4th round that literally could have been a 2nd-round pick. You could honestly say if he would have stayed at Alabama, maybe he might have been a 1st-round pick. This team made significant strides. I do not understand how everybody's sleeping on this team so much. You got basically a threat in Jaheim Bell, who anytime he touches the football, he has an Aaron Hernandez type role in an offense. He can play fullback. No. I don't mean like that. I don't mean like he's kind of killer, but he can be used as a fullback. He can be used as a tight end. He's a little bit undersized for a tight end, but look, across the board, they got a guy in Caden Wallace who, when he matched up with Aiden Hutchinson in college, didn't give up a single pressure, didn't give up a single hit, didn't give up a single sack. They bolstered the offensive line. They fixed the quarterback room. They grabbed 2 guys that are going to be a threat at wide receiver. And then you got Jaheim Bell later on. Oh, and by the way, if you want to just fuck around and use Taysom Hill role and Joe Milton, good luck. I'm not saying that this team is going to win anything significant. It is going to be year 1, and more than likely, Drake May is going to sit half the season. But if they figure it the fuck out, this division just became that much more interesting. Because last year you got a 4-win team, 8 one-score games with Mac Jones and a JV offense. 8 one-score games. That means that defense was a problem. And now you get Matthew Judon back, you get Marcus Jones back, you get Gonzo back. You shake your head, but you know I'm making sense right now. If they figure it out, Drake May starts, he figures out the footwork, whatever. Which, by the way, AVP is the best at doing that, because the one year he decided to be a quarterback's coach for Aaron Rodgers, wins an MVP. The one year he's a coach for Baker Mayfield, his interceptions are cut in half. So if there's anybody that can develop Drake May, it's him. If they figure out what the fuck to do with this team, the Bills may finish last in this division.
I'm not saying you're wrong that they're a better team after the draft. Especially
I'm saying significant, bro. They had Mac Jones last year.
You had a very quiet offseason, to say the least. Not as quiet.
If you're going based off free agency, yes.
No, this is sheerly draft. I'm saying you guys had a quiet free agency. Not as quiet as the Cowboys, but quiet. You did get Michael Winter back, which was big. Guys needed him back in the line. You just signed what's the guy you just signed? $40 million contract. Barmore.
Yeah,
Christian Barmore.
One of top 10 defensive tackle in the NFL.
Yeah. So you guys are doing what you have to do with keeping the players you want to keep in-house, and still have a ton of cap space. I think you said $50 million currently still. You guys did improve from where you were last year immensely.
Drastically.
But by that same regard, before I go into mine, Justin also had the Chicago Bears for obvious reasons. Literally was his reason in the chat. Obvious reasons. My most improved, sheerly from the draft, the Washington Commanders.
It's a good pick.
I think They had so many holes to fill, but they had so many picks in the early rounds that they just started plugging these holes, just like the little old school like cartoons where they take little plugs and start
Adam Peters, man. Adam Peters
and
comes
just
from
start.
where does he come from?
I mean, you can answer that. I have no idea, Rob. I'm not gonna lie to you. I have no idea.
The 49ers, bro. Assistant GM for the
Oh,
49ers.
yeah. All right. Sorry, went over my head. Not thinking, but still have the image of the cork holes going into the side of the boat. But Jaden Daniels at number 2, I think was the correct choice between him and Drake May. I think was the correct choice. Jaden Daniels gives you more of the blue chip SEC versus
He just fixed Kingsbury's offense.
yeah. I think it was the correct choice. I think the new ownership is doing a good first step for that team, which is much needed post Dan Schneider. And they started filling holes left and right, not reaching too far for what they needed, but they had so many needs they could take the best player available in most situations. And they replaced D-line when Chase Young leaving. They have Jaden Daniels now. They have wide receivers. Scary Terry is still much so a viable number 1 option on that team. They got better in defensive secondary, which was huge for them last year. And I think just overall, it's hard to say they didn't get better because of how dog shit they were last year and how much better and well run they look to be in this year, and the talent level and age on that, especially since you do have great veteran presence on the defense side of the ball and a very tough offensive line. If they come together under Cliff Kingsbury, the team could be very, very tough out in the NFC East, which is also, besides the Eagles, will probably be a very competitive division. I don't know who finishes last in that division.
Cowboys gonna finish last.
Honestly, if it's not the Giants, I think it's gonna be the Cowboys.
The thing is with the Giants, and the reason why I say maybe it's not them is because maybe Daniel Jones had an off year. He got hurt.
I mean, that's my only thing is I think Daniel Jones might have. I think he was hurt the entirety of the year. I really don't think he was ever healthy. The offensive line was atrocious, and I don't think it was all Daniel Jones.
I also think he's playing for his life now.
Yeah, so. I think he knows it too. He definitely knows it. And he has Malik Neighbors, so I think that also helped him. Also really helped. But
and Hyatt.
I mean, I hope Jalen Hyatt turns into something. I really do.
Some fucking burner.
Unless we safe rounds, alibis, and we got last second things.
Yep.
Well, that will be it for our post-draft episode here on the Gridiron. Once again, I am Gage with Chris and with the House Call founder himself, Rob, gracing us with his presence for this episode. That'll be it for us today. Hope you all like, subscribe, comment on the video whether we were right, wrong, your thoughts versus our thoughts. We'll probably comment back and tell you a little further, more in-depth opinion on that. I know Rob likes to stay updated on social media. And feel free to take your best shot. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great day. We'll catch you all next time.